Tennessee didn't get the memo, and things are way different once I got down south. And I was working some shit job in graveyard shifts, so my whole sleep schedule was different. And after work at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd get a shower, and on my way home I would stop at the pool rooms just to kind of see what was happening. And it would be the typical, I mean, these are real pool rooms. Yeah, and you'd see matches, legitimate 1-pocket, 9-ball bank matches, and legitimate players matching up. So like 10 o'clock in the morning, you'd see these guys. And then I was heading back to work later to be at work at midnight. I'd stop off at the bar, at the pool room / bars, to see what was happening. And you'd see the same guys that you saw at 10 o'clock in the morning acting like totally different people and playing cheap-ass 8-ball, 9-ball, you know, like 5 a game. This is out having a good time out in the bars and making more money. So they're making money in the daytime and they're making money at nighttime. And that's when it started dawning on me that it was a whole subculture, a whole thing that you can still do in parts of America. You could just do nothing but play pool all day, all night, every single day for money. And if you're winning and you're playing good, or you knew how to match up real good, you could actually still make a living playing pool in America without being a pro. And that's when I knew that this is what I had to do, that I had to give this my all. And so I was in a race against time to get as good as I possibly could, or at least as good as these guys, in order to live the life that I really wanted to live. So it's like, yeah, you had to switch modes. You had to change characters. You had to be one thing in the daytime and a totally different thing at nighttime, which is just fascinating. You couldn't do that in Philly. You couldn't. And if people were doing it, I'm sure, you know, there are players that were doing it. But Philly is so big; it's the third biggest city in America. That you would never see these guys. You see one player one day, never see him again. But they're still playing pool somewhere. It's just the city's so big, you would never continually cross paths. And Knoxville is different. It's much, much smaller. Not even like a mid-sized city. It was a little smaller than mid-sized. So it's small enough to continually, if you were in the pool grind, you would continually cross paths with the same players all the time. There's a lot of really, really great people in the pool world. I made some lifelong friends and some of the greatest people I've ever known. There's also a lot of pricks and a lot of people that like to gossip and think they know things that they really don't. And it's easy for me to say, but just do your best not to let them get you down, and just kind of keep your vision, focus on the future and your goals, and just go at it like a business and do what you gotta do. Again, I know that's easier said than done, and I've reduced myself to letting those folks get to me sometimes. I'm not proud of it. If I could change anything, that's what I would change. Stay focused on the good people and the positive things, and you'll be just fine. He was a little older than people thought he was. I mean, he had always been in bad health. Somebody had drug him out of his house, and they were taking him around pretty damn hard in Philadelphia, Jersey. Oh, he say all the money was in Connecticut. But you'd see him, and he was always a natural character. And he would walk in, and for the next 10 hours he owned the place. But he also had a laid back thing going on to where his stake horse cared a lot, but he didn't seem to care about anything. And he had that really unorthodox streak. He was always real nice to me. He called me Johnny. It was just like he belonged there, you know, and it was his, and he would just steal everybody's show and leave, and he always got the money too. That's a shame what happened. Corey Dole lived in Philly a while, and I don't know if I have this right, but his dad was a big shot something, and would drop Corey off in the pool rooms when he was a kid to act as a kind of babysitter, and then his dad would go to work and pick up Corey afterward. And I didn't like him. I thought he was cocky and arrogant, and it was obvious that he was going to be this incredible pro player, and there was no secret about it. The kid could really, really, really play. And so I didn't want to get beat by some 13-year-old arrogant kid, so I just I was a total railbird at that point anyway. I was just trying to figure out what this whole subculture pool is all about. So no, I never played Corey Dole. Even when he was a kid, I mean, it was obvious he was a monster. Bit of a little dickhead, if you ask me. You know, people have grown to have a whole lot of respect for Corey and what he's done. So... big road guys coming into town in Philly. The first one was Larry Scotty, and I never saw him hit a ball, but he came into one of those old high dollar pool rooms owned by a big high dollar person, and the whole town zipped up their pie. Everyone was afraid of Larry. And this was right before he went pro, and everybody found out why everybody was afraid of him. Straight pool player. and one of the best to ever live. But I was confused about it. It was a big influence on me how Philadelphia was afraid of him. So that played a big part. But later on, the biggest influence in my whole life was Buddy Hall, and how he took off Philadelphia like it was nothing. He hung around for a couple of weeks and brought in some big stake horses, big money, and just robbed everybody and never said a word. His backer did all the talking, Buddy just played pool. And that was incredible to me, how people could make that much money doing something they love to do. You got to realize I was from the factory part of Philadelphia where it was all working people. And people, they hated their jobs and hated their lives. And so I was looking for a way out. And Buddy was he just became this king to me. And he was just absolutely, I could go on forever about how much of an influence he played on me. Later on in Knoxville, the road guys were on a little bit of a lesser scale. It was guys like Gary Spaeth. People coming in from Ohio and Kentucky, Shannon Dalton. Shannon has his share of big pro tournaments. Back then he was playing a lot of one pocket. Eugene Browning, a lot of people just never heard of this guy, but he was incredible on the bar tables, and he was one of those guys you could see hustling all the shortstops in the daytime and then out in the bars playing for nickels and dimes and hustling all the bar people. and he was so cool too. Eugene Browning. Look him up if you never heard that name. It's not his real name. He's on Facebook. I don't want to give his Eugene's actually his middle name. He's still a great guy. I think one of the best people I've ever met as far as real legitimate pool players. Eugene was great, especially on the bar table. Guys like this, he would come in and grind and just gamble and beat all our shortstops. And we had some serious shortstops back then, too. Yeah. People think of Philadelphia as this like squeaky old, straight pool place, and with the mob and Moscone and Greenleaf and it was the Fusco boys and but we had a whole different side to us of newness and young ladies and arcades and Jersey Beach, and it wasn't. You could be whatever element you wanted to be. If you wanted to hang out with the old guys and act like you're in church, then you could have that if you wanted. But I was young, and so I had too much energy to just sit in musty old pool rooms with, So, but when I got to Tennessee. There was such a different culture. But you had to run. You couldn't just stay in one, bar every night and expect to know what was going on in Knoxville at the pool scene. You had to run within the scene. You had to jump from bar to bar, to pool room to pool room. And at the same time, actually it was a couple years later, first we had Comer's, which was a real pool hall owned by Dick Comer, but when I started coming around, Dick was in bad health and he was dying, and so I was at Comer's every day for probably 3 years. And then when that happened, as sad as it was, Knoxville Billiards Club opened in South Knoxville and is owned by Burl Gabbert, who was a real big-time stake horse, and his wife Susan was running the place. And I was there. I was their first paying customer. I was there on day one, and I was there every day for 4 years straight. And that's when I started running. That's when I started getting out with the better players, and seeing that whole nothing but pool 24/7 lifestyle. It was really fascinating going from Philadelphia to Knoxville. And then there was a couple of years I took off and went to California to work auto body. But actually, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a musician. And the whole reason that I went to California is because that's where all the great musicians are, and I was trying to get into that subculture of music and do something with my music. But when I got to California, it was so expensive. Even back then, and everybody in California, you're seen as a walking dollar bill, and they're going to get every nickel they can get out of you everywhere you go. In California, it'll knit you to death. And I was so busy trying to make money that I didn't have time for music. I didn't have time for pool. I didn't have time for anything. I was there, and it was all about getting the money to survive in California. And after a year and a half, 2 years, it was enough. It was just like, look, man, there's got to be more to life than making rich people richer. So I retreated back to Knoxville, and that's when I really got into the pool scene. I'm like, I got to do something with this. It's still here. It's still thriving. It's possible. You're just going to have to be smart and hustle cheap pool at night and play legitimate players in the daytime in tough matches in real pool rooms. You had to be like two people. Yeah, it was great. Now, you're gonna have to do is a combination of tournaments and grinding. Yeah, it can probably still be done. There's things that have changed though, and you have to be careful with. Run with a partner that you can trust. Somebody get your back. Stay off the dope. That's a surefire way of destroying you as a human being and a pool player. It's not going to last long. I don't want to preach at anybody. Just be careful with it. Be careful with the drinking. That can get a hold of you too. And you know this shit. There's a lot of dope. There's a lot of violence. A lot of people are packing guns, and don't go at it trying to be a badass. You're gonna get killed. Just try to do your best to just stay out of trouble, and everybody's gonna know who you are, so it's gonna be hard to hide. You can't. Guys do it, but it's really hard to hide your identity. Everyone's going to know how you play and where you stand, and it's going to be more matching up than hustling. So you're going to have to play. And some of these local guys can really play. And the reason they're not big household names is because they have jobs they like, they have wives, they have kids, they have houses that they have to maintain, and they'll come out every once in a while and put a whipping on some guy that,